So, should I tell all the details?
You're going to tell that story?
Yeah.
No, that story.
That story. All the details.
Go for it.
Go for it. All the details.
No, that'd be equal to social suicide.
Yeah.
That's just horrible. Now I'll spare you the details. But hey, we all have secrets. As a matter of fact, the other day, Giraj sent me a link to a video. Two guys went around the city interviewing, asking people, what's your secret? And then people are telling their secrets. One girl was smart. She said, well, if it's a secret, why would I tell it now to you? I'm going to put it on YouTube. Won't be a secret anymore. Okay, we all have had in our lives horrible experiences. So, personally, I had a really wild teenage, and some or other when I hit the teenage, it just, I don't know, what was it, a combination of hormones, boiling, the confused age, and accompanied with a desire to just taste life to its fullest. That's the time your senses are blossoming and developing, and you just want to experience everything to the max. You just, okay, I'm alive, I'm conscious, here I am, I'm living, might as well live. So I did some pretty intense things in my attempts to experience life to the fullest. And one day particularly I did something just very, very extreme, and woke up in the morning and either looked around what used to be my room. Now it didn't look like my room anymore. And I can't tell you what it was because it's really far out. But it was so far out that I couldn't believe it. I thought, even nowadays people, I'm 37, so teenage for me was, 20 years ago? Okay. So this was like more 20 years plus years ago. And but even nowadays teenagers do that. I hear them here all the time. They say, dude, it was so good last night, I don't remember a thing. It's such a great time. You can't remember a thing. So it was something like that. And I woke up and I looked around the room, and things were just so extreme that not for a moment did I think that I possibly could have done that. And I looked around and I checked my door. I opened the door. Did someone break in while I was asleep and made all this mess in my room? The door was locked, and I was the only one who had a key. As a teenager, you want to make sure you're the only one who has a key to your room. Not your mom, not your dad, not anyone else, sister, brother. Strictly a confidential zone. Then I thought, well, maybe someone came in through the window. So I went to the window and I checked the window. With the window, it was one of those old windows in Mediterranean. People like to keep old-fashioned windows because they look cool, and they're pleasant to see, and they do the function properly. So the way you lock them is the only way possible, from within. And when you lock them, there's no way anyone can get in from the outside. So I understood, okay, no one came from the outside. And it was so extreme that not even at this point could I think that I perhaps have done that. So I started to think maybe some astral creatures, maybe some ghost entered my room and made this mess. So horrible was the mess. And then in one point, it just, I had to accept the fact. It's not that I had to accept. All along, the mess was so horrible, I couldn't even accept. I couldn't even begin to think that I did it. And then finally, it just hit me. Oh my God, I did this. And I was so, okay, I'm laughing now, but back then I was very, very depressed. I was very depressed. I thought, my God, this is animalistic. This is horrible. And as a matter of fact, I was depressed for weeks afterwards. For months afterwards, every time I would think of that incident, even now when I think of that incident, sort of kind of darkness sets into my heart and I start to sink emotionally. My happiness dwindles away. So, the question is, why did I feel like that? Why did I feel like that? I felt like that because in front of my very eyes, I could see myself turning from a human into an animal. In other words, my existence was rotting away. This was extreme. Okay, we all do crazy things for fun, have a wild party, but this was extreme. I thought, okay, this is it. I'm like really crossing the boundaries. This is now defeating it all. This is not even funny anymore. But okay, so here's the thing. There's a good and there's a bad news about this. The bad news is that there I was, me, a healthy human being, looking at myself and seeing an unhealthy human being, nearly an animal. And therefore I was alarmed. Now, had I sunk further into this basically ignorance, I would have been not a human being looking at an animal. I would have been an animal looking at an animal. And I would not have felt bad. You follow? But because I still, I didn't completely sync with my extreme lifestyle, there was still good, healthy human part of me. So when that good, healthy human part of me looked at that subhuman part, the human part was horrified. And thought, my God, this is, wow, I have to do something about this. But had I sank so low that I had become an animal, like really subhuman, and then had I looked at myself and saw the subhuman, I would have been okay. I would just, okay, animal looking at an animal is fine. And we see this, for example, in the real life. Someone who feels remorse after committing an act that's objectively not good, that's a good sign that the good, healthy human part of that person is still intact. So when that person looks at one's subhuman part, one can see that that's subhuman, and therefore still has ability to correct oneself. Now, what happens if one sinks so low that one becomes a subhuman, looking at subhuman self, and just being okay with it?
They deny your parole.
Correct, they deny your parole. You have to be kept behind bars. You're just lost. You got no clue. In other words, ignorance can be so pervading. Like, they have different technical terms for this kind of emotional derangement. And basically that's what it is. That you can actually do a bad action and not feel remorse because you have become such an animal. This is an insult to animals, so excuse me. So similarly, same thing happens when the spiritual self, sinks into materialism so bad that the self has become so materialized that when the self looks at the self, so materialistic self looks at the materialistic self and has no problem with it. Has no problem with it. This is dangerous. This person, this soul has become so desensitized, so divorced from one's spiritual being, that how do you help this person? And if you present something spiritual, they're just not getting it. They're like, dude, what's up with you? Leave me alone. Whatever. So it's much better if one has not sunk that low, has retained some spiritual sense, That spiritual self, when it looks at the materialistic self, can think, yeah, I could be doing better. But the ignorance becomes so pervading, it can become so pervading that when the spiritual self looks at the now materialistic self and thinks, yeah, I'm cool. I got no issues. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're an ignorant. You need to be incarcerated. So this is a good. This is how we can, check our spiritual pulse. How deep have we sunk into the materialistic ignorance? Are we alarmed at all? When we look at ourself, materialistic self, and are we feeling like some discomfort about it, or we're just, I'm fine. I just need some more money, or I just need some more whatever to complement my materialistic self.